This is gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to the Thinking Critical Comic Book Podcast, and today we are reviewing the debut-ish episode of Falcon Winter Soldier on Disney+. This episode is called The New World Order, and here with me, my main man, Skip and Tosh. How you doing?
Doing great, man. You know, coming up on the 80th anniversary of Captain America. It's funny, I know timing is off with different things, but I like how this ended up lining up with it, considering all the news going on around Captain America with the comics. But this one is inspired by the comics, but not quite the comics. So I'm more than excited to talk about it.
Definitely a little bit loosely inspired by the comics. We'll definitely get into that. Obviously, this is a comic book podcast channel right here. But Sebastian Stan does reprise his role, obviously, as Bucky Barnes. We've got Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson Falcon. And Don Cheadle in here is kind of maybe the mentor for Sam Wilson. Obviously, he's Rhodey. Very, very good episode. I don't know that it's perfect, but it's definitely a highly recommend. I'll give it like a 4.5 out of 5. So the legacy of Captain America looms over this issue from the very first images to the very last. But what we're essentially getting, it does open up with some action, but really this is about two characters. This feels like it's straight out of the MCU, which I like. Definitely a different vibe to it than WandaVision, where that almost felt like an homage to classic television in some ways. This one feels like it's definitely driven by the movie, but we have two characters. We've had the blip. All these people have been returned back to Earth. Half the population's returned. And Sam Wilson is returning to his life. And Bucky Barnes is returning to a life that really never existed for him. So we have two characters that are diametrically opposed, returning from the same situation. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the approach that they took with it. I really appreciated on the side how, I like that he never really got to experience, as they stated in there, he went from one war to another. I did like how they slipped in. He had a sliver, only like a moment of peace while he was in Wakanda after the events of Civil War had happened. And he got unbrainwashed out there and got to live as the White Wolf, which is another nice little deep cut that they threw in there that I appreciated. So it's nice to see him start to work through his issues. Some of the things that Steve had to address, Steve Rogers, Captain America, my favorite character in the Marvel universe, as he got to work through his issues. Now Bucky gets to take his turn, and we would think, and if the circumstances were closer to being perfect, Steve would help Bucky through that. But as he is not in the picture anymore, Bucky has to kind of hack it at this point in the episode alone. And I really, really appreciated and connected with a lot of the things regarding Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, the things that he had to return to, family, what things look like after that, them addressing how he was one of the people that was blipped. So him returning to his family 5 years later, his nieces and nephews, or just in this case, I guess his nephews, going from being small when he was there to being more grown up now. All of that stuff was a really good foundation for them to jump off. And I did actually really appreciate the scene where he went in and they were trying to get a loan from some assets within the family. And he wasn't trying to use his superhero persona, his heroism in order to get the loan, but got recognized and come to find out that even that wouldn't be enough to help his family overcome that financial burden and get that loan. So I really appreciated that writing.
So initially when we're reintroduced to Bucky Barnes, it's kind of hinted that maybe he's back in the assassination game, but we learned that those are just nightmares. And we do get some good foundation for Bucky. Yeah, he is alone, but they kind of explained how he's out on his own. You think maybe, should he be in prison or something? He's been pardoned, but as a part of that, he needs to go through some therapy to get through his issues. And he's working through there. And one of the things he's trying to do is make amends. He's got a list of people he has to go make it right. I enjoyed that part because, yes, he was making it right, but he was also like turning in agents of Hydra. And it's like, hey, remember me? I'm the Winter Soldier. I work for America now. You're arrested. And so it was good. He's got some purpose, but he's really just all alone except for one old Asian man named Yori, who's trying to help him get back in the dating game. I like where they have a Bucky Barnes right here. Like you said, normally Steve is the only person in the history of the world that's ever experienced what he has, but his experience is even more traumatic because he was essentially being forced to murder people on and off for 90 years straight. So he's got a lot of things to work through. But I liked at least they gave him one little sliver, one connection to humanity in this older gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of my favorite emotional beats, emotional investment points within the episode, especially, coming around to realize that while he was brainwashed, that older Asian gentleman's son was an innocent bystander, a witness to something that the Winter Soldier had done, a mission that he had done. So that is the reason why he's trying to make amends, because that is the father of one of the innocent bystanders who ended up becoming a victim of the Winter Soldier. Of course, leave no witnesses behind is the MO when you're doing those types of work. So I agree there.
Yeah, so it's the contrast of the two characters and where they are. Obviously, Bucky Barnes, he's a man at a time. He's a man looking for some type of personal redemption. He knows what he did. He's dreaming about it, having nightmares, and he wants atonement, but he has no purpose. He's pardoned, but he's not exactly working for the government anymore. He doesn't have family. They're pretty much all passed on. So that's kind of where he's started from, but he does have this one sliver of humanity, and he gets a bit of a call to action when he finds out what happened to Yuri and his son, where we juxtapose that with Sam Wilson. He's coming back, and he's the big hero. He's still working for the United States Air Force. He's in a much healthier place, like mentally. He's employed, but he wants to save the day all the time. He comes back. His sister's basically been propping up the family business this whole time, and he wants to come in and save the day. And you're right, when he goes and he visits the bank, he finds out, yes, I might be world famous and I might have saved the world, but that only buys you so much, maybe a little bit of fame, but it's not going to buy him that loan that he needs. So you have Sam Wilson in a better circumstance, but maybe feeling even more helpless.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, kind of us connecting to these characters in, very human, very realistic ways, certain things that we may have gone through ourselves or some of our family that are close to us, or friends. We see them go through these types of trials. I did also appreciate the fact that he is still part of the military, still going on missions, still that hot hand, like your boy Skip himself, Falcon, kind of pushing the line on things, but saving the day. And I did really like how in that part, and I hope I'm not too hot on this, but one of the first things that we see to reconnect us to the universe would be Batroc the Leaper, one of my favorite villains, Georges St. Pierre, MMA champion, retired, but extraordinaire, kind of coming and just throwing us right back into that universe, reminding us all that all of these stories are connected. And that was a great bit of continuity. And it was cool to also see how that storyline kind of tied into what some of the villains that we're going to be running into will be later on in the season.
Absolutely. That's what made it. That's what gave you that MCU feel. You get a character that you were used to, but you also get a big over-the-top action sequence, as we got Anthony Mackie's Falcon flying all over the place. He's got a little bit of help on the ground. They're talking about his heads-up display. Certainly, he would have got that from Tony Stark. So it was a great callback and definitely made it feel like we're in the MCU. But another thing that definitely makes it feel like you're in the MCU is the looming legacy of Captain America. And I imagine a lot of people, when they saw the name Falcon Winter Soldier rather than Captain America on there, I thought, Falcon was the new Captain America. But when we get the opening scene, he's basically dedicating Captain Shield and giving it, I believe, to some type of museum, and Rhodey's there, and he's explaining, this is one of the most powerful symbols in the world, but it meant nothing without a man like Steve Rogers behind it. And he didn't feel like he was worthy of accepting a symbol like that and wasn't ready for that type of mantle, and so he was leaving it there, maybe for somebody else to pick up in time. I imagine that's ultimately what this series will be about, is who will take up that mantle in the end and be the new Captain America. At the very end, we know there might be a spoiler about Captain America coming up here in a bit, but I like the homage to Steve Rogers and the legacy of Captain America. I also like when they're in the museum and it's got all the pictures. You see a Captain America #1 issue cover, and there's some scenes and some callbacks not only to the MCU but to Marvel Comics as well. So as the nerd in me, I started getting a little tingly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you start showing stuff about Cap, and I'm getting tingly too. Like I said, that is my favorite character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Has been since I was younger. As I gotten older, it's only become more so. I myself, people have always called me an old soul, so I connect in being a man out of time, and I love how within this series, they use Bucky as the man to ground Cap and make things feel like home, because that was his friend from his original timeline, so to speak, or from the good old days. And then you have Sam Wilson, another soldier, someone to make Steve feel very familiar and make him feel like home, when it comes to the modern day, and then bringing those two characters together. But the homages for Cap, and Wes, you said it, I had it noted, that quote, a symbol is nothing without the men and women who are behind it that give it its meaning and its value. Fantastic quote from this. Those are the parts of this show that I was just eating up.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it being a man out of time, and that was definitely like what they were trying to hammer home about Bucky Barnes. He does go on a date, and when he's trying to woo this lovely young lady, she mentions, "You remind me of my father." Like you feel like maybe you're not from this time. And he mentions, I've tried online dating, but there's weird pictures, and you can see how difficult it's going to be for him. When you think about all the characters that are in the MCU that didn't really get true origins, but they were major players, you can't really think of two that you could flesh out better than Sam Wilson, and even to a larger degree Bucky Barnes, because of the character progression that needs to happen for him to fully be realized as a hero and feel like he himself has redeemed himself for what he's done. So I think taking these two characters and putting them in a series like this, hopefully, I'm imagining it's going to be like a buddy cop series where they end up helping each other out to achieve their further goals, are the right mix. And I just really definitely felt for the Bucky Barnes character, because what's he supposed to do? What are you doing? It's like very, very good stuff. Now, there were some call-ups. Obviously, you mentioned Batroc. George St. Pierre, that would have been, I believe, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So a call back to the introduction of Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier. But we also got to meet what appears to be one of the initial big bads, and that's the Flag Smashers. Obviously, in the comic books, that was, I believe it's two different characters, but initially, it's a Red Skull-esque villain that kind of represents anti-patriotism, whereas the Red Skull was like a symbol of Nazism. I guess that's the analogy that you would use. But now the Flag Smasher is no longer a person; it's a group of terrorists.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that was a nice touch too. The villain itself was not so defined that you can't make changes like that to make the story more interesting. Of course, anytime you have a group like this, there are going to be some sort of organizational leader, whether it's a council itself or, one individual person. And we saw from within the scene that, the ground support for Sam Wilson when he's on the intro scene to the show, carrying out a mission for the Air Force as Falcon, the ground support was someone who he had a conversation with, so they have some sort of working relationship, and maybe slightly personal as well. But that person had made mention of this group that was kind of forming online within certain channels and and whatnot, certain forums. And he said he's going to keep an eye on it, and Sam advised him to. And it was interesting that he kind of went a little bit past that and kind of got involved. And when he got an up close and personal look, there was someone who appeared to have superhuman strength distributed, as the masks were distributed for the Flag Smashers to kind of be decoys. The person jumped out of the building onto the ground. So one indication of some superhuman strength. And then also when Sam's buddy tried to make an arrest, that person basically tore them up and showed some superhuman might with how he's throwing them around like a rag doll. So there's more than meets the eye when it comes to these Flag Smashers.
It also ties directly into what happened in the Avengers Endgame Infinity Wars type of story, whereas they want to go back to the blip. They want to go back to where half the population is gone and things had changed. But now that they're back, everything is they're trying to change back, and they want it back to the way it was. So there's some interesting motivation for that group there. I don't know how they're going to execute that exactly, but I'm definitely game for that one. Now, the big reveal is we finally do know who's going to inherit the mantle of Captain America. It is not Sam Wilson, Falcon. It is not Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier. It is John Walker, who traditionally in comic books, after Captain America returned in Avengers #4, essentially becomes Captain America. He is found wanting. He turns out to be a bad Captain America, and Steve Rogers has to return. But we do see him in the very last pages, or the last panels, and that is the new Captain America that hopefully one of these characters will have to supplant by the end of the series.
Absolutely. And I think it was a really natural setup for Sam to give over the shield. After his first mission, they go to the Smithsonian, where some of those scenes that Wes talked about earlier of Captain America and all the memorabilia and the different pictures and propaganda of Captain America, we were able to kind of reminisce and see. And Sam and, Rhodey had that conversation. They reconnected and whatnot at that scene. But that is essentially what it is. Sam was lied to, and it was thought that he was going to be handing over the shield, that he didn't feel like he had feet big enough to fit the shoes. He was going to hand that over to the Smithsonian, and they were going to, essentially, lack of a better term, immortalize and celebrate Captain America. And people add that to his section in the Smithsonian, and then come to find out all along that it was a ploy just to get the shield away, and the U.S. was finding a replacement, a Captain America that they could control, because after, obviously, we've seen the events that had happened in Infinity War, Endgame, Civil War, and whatnot. Cap had become what he felt was fit and what he felt best represented America, and in his way that he wanted to be able to be free to go and help people that needed it. And of course, now they have a Captain America that it seems that they could control. Also, shout out to Christopher Priest. If you're currently reading the U.S. Agent book, it is a real treat. It's nice to feel some nice, tight, and and very unique writing, capturing the voice of the characters in an interesting story. Currently at Marvel, one of the only Marvel books that I'm currently buying and reading. So shout out to Christopher Priest for that.
Absolutely. So to sum it up, I would say that Falcon Winter Soldier is a winner. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Definitely feels like it is of the MCU. Definitely ties right back into that. So if you enjoy that MCU feel, I think you're definitely going to enjoy this. Great foundation being laid as far as the characters and where they need to go with their lives. Sam Wilson, you can't save everybody. And just because you're famous, that might not mean something to everybody else. Bucky Barnes, you can still love yourself. You are not, you can be redeemed after all the bad things that you've done. And, you can be a part of society now. They kind of have these things to work towards. But we do have the U.S. government playing shenanigans with John Walker as the new Captain America. We do have the Flag Smashers have been introduced. We got 5 more episodes for this first season. I'm very excited. We'll obviously be reviewing every episode right here on the channel. I will give you the last word, Skip.
Yeah, last words. I won't make it long, but I did really appreciate some of the Easter eggs that they tied in. Captain America, when we are introduced to Bucky in the Winter Soldier movie, he has a list. Sam was telling him something to check out, and he had a list. So Bucky having his own paper list. Now, he has a smartphone, but he had a paper list. I thought that was a cool thing that they did to kind of tie those two things together. I like that his list was to make amends. That reminded me of the Eastbound and Down storyline, where the guy that screwed over Kenny Powers had to go and make amends with people. So that immediately came to mind. I'm going to look and see if there's some writers there, because they might be sharing some writers. And lastly, it was just, I would easily give it a 4 out of 5. Not a perfect episode, but a really good one to start. Tons of things bringing the MCU into it. And this was a breath of fresh air. It didn't feel like it's just same old MCU. I really appreciated what they did with the show. And I'm very excited to watch the next one and then be right back here with Wes reviewing it for all of you who tune in to Thinking Critical. So as always, thank y'all for tuning in and being with us. And please fill up your favorite parts or your criticisms that you had in the chat. I'll be in there liking stuff, engaging in the conversation, and keeping this community going.